Hey there, best friends. Welcome to our review of American Horror Stories, Season 30, Episode 1, Bestie. You know what? When in Rome, you gotta just act like the weird, creepy people that you see on the show, minus some of the stuff that they actually do in the episode.
Listen, we are not going to be your besties that's going to send you out to smash your hand or kill anybody. We're just here as besties for you guys to go through American Horror Stories this
Yes.
season, where we have 4 episodes that have all dropped at once, but we're going to go through them with 4 different videos for you. But we are starting now with number 1, Bestie.
We're here to take all the fear away. You don't have to be
Oh dear.
afraid while you're watching. Well, okay, well, if you're watching us, you're probably not afraid of, of really anything with this show. You're completely down the rabbit hole like us. Big picture, I think there's going to be opinions all over the map about this episode from start to finish.
Yeah, I mean, early opinion for me, I really liked this episode. I think this was a really strong start to the season. And I feel like there's going to be people that are like, it was cheeseball or whatever. And I think other people will really like it. But for me, I mean, we've had episodes like Bro House, which I know is not what it was called, but
Yeah.
like, come on. Like, we've had some pretty, I don't know how to say it, dumb kind of episodes, and this was not one of them. I think overall solid. I'm not here being like, this is a 10 out of 10. Oh, perfect. Like, it wasn't perfect, but it's pretty solid. There was some stuff in there
Yeah.
that really like kicked me in straight in my heart. Like that whole thing with Shelby coming in dressed as that baby, like I felt my heart sink into my stomach for that teacher.
There were some legitimately really creepy moments. There were, I think, some pretty good performances through here. I don't think
I
there was
agree.
any clear casting miss. Like this to me is a perfect start to a season. I don't think this is in my top 5 favorite American Horror Stories episodes. I think it has some issues, but I'm not sitting here being like, what did I just do with my time? Like, there was a moment after I believe it was called Drive, the Bella Thorne episode from last season. I wanted to become the doctor, hop in the TARDIS, go back in time so that I never watched any of that.
Oh my goodness. You want to talk about, dumb episodes. That episode I just try to forget,
Yeah,
pretend that never happened. But that's how it is with this show.
yeah.
This sort of like spin-off of the American Horror Story, these stories, they're really hit and miss. But for me, when they hit really well. But when they miss, it's Drive.
Okay, well, we're just gonna drive forward now and talk about everything that worked with Bestie, what didn't work. But hit that subscribe button because, as Jess set up, we are gonna be here through all of this Huluween event. Who doesn't love marketing? And we will talk about every single episode. Obviously, it would be great if there were more than 4. It is
Yeah.
what it is. But by subscribing, you guys help us so much to be able to create this fun content. We love talking about this show, horror TV in general. I mean, we had a great time with the Fall of the House of Usher too earlier this month.
Yeah, if you're looking for a really creepy show, that is for you. It's right up your alley. That's over on Netflix. But
Yes.
now we're talking about besties. So here's sort of the premise is we have this daughter and this father who have moved to a new place. They've lost, he's lost his wife. She's lost her mother who has passed away. And they're trying to sort of have this fresh start. And things are not going so well for the daughter, Shelby. She's at school. She's getting kind of kicked around. She's, trying to kind of fight back as a reaction. This girl's like picking on her. She throws a book at her or whatever
Yeah.
and gets hit in the nose. I'm like, oh, okay. Maybe that'll be the end of it. It's not. Getting a bleedy nose, not enough for that girl. She needs to come back for more. It doesn't end. So it ends up with Shelby in this situation where she's just like, really diving into her favorite YouTuber, and we all do it. And
Mhm.
when I was first watching this episode, I was like, oh, is this going to be about parasocial relationships with YouTubers? Because that happens all the time.
Yeah.
And I wasn't sure if it was going to be that was going on, but instead she meets somebody in the fandom and it's like, oh, we become besties sort of thing. And the relationship just takes off because Shelby's in this place where she's feeling really displaced and she's looking for somebody who really understands her, which I think is a very relatable thing to everybody.
This is almost a Black Mirror episode in some ways when it comes to the whole
Felt
theme
like
of
it.
it being technology can be very, very dark, very evil. There are people who will take advantage of a lot
Mhm,
of this. And I think beyond just that, this is an episode really about the difficulties of loneliness in this
mhm,
current era where if your life just sucks, or at least that's what you feel about it, you're going to look for an escape somewhere else. You're going to find some like-minded people. Like I understand this. You know, when I was a teenager, I would jump on message boards to try to like
mhm,
hide away from like, all the nasty people that were existing in my high school environment. It's a very natural proclivity to want to do that when you're Shelby's age, and they
mhm,
played that really well alongside establishing how creepy this bestie was, but at the same time, all the different reasons why Shelby couldn't see it. Like her father was immersing himself in work, not spending enough time with her, so she was feeling isolated and hurt there. She's feeling hurt at school, and here's this other person who's putting in all of this time and giving her
mhm.
affirmations and making her think that she's special, and in doing that, it's giving her a feeling that she hasn't felt before.
Yes, they did a really good job in this episode building that up. Like when I saw how long this episode was, I think it was like 53 or
Yeah,
56 minutes. I was like, okay, they're going to take their time with this story and they did. The build up from sort of like the smaller things, oh, maybe you should wear some makeup to school, change your hair a little
yeah,
bit, okay, let's move into the next thing. Like let's hide this one little thing. Oh, now let's break this thing. Oh, now
yeah,
it's time to start stealing things. Oh, now it's time to, go to school and take this very traumatic experience that's happened to your teacher and throw it in his face, like getting, just escalating, escalating, escalating until they get to this part where the father can't take it anymore. Shelby's so out of control. He doesn't know what to do. He puts
yeah,
her in the basement for basically like a timeout where she's kind of like, I don't know how long I'm going to be down here for. I mean, he was never going to leave her down there forever.
yeah,
He's not, like that. But I think he just didn't know what to do. This is what he chose. And then her bestie is there being like, hey, you know how you get out of here? Just put your hand in this vice grip over here and smash it. I was just like, they built up enough that I believed that she would do that at that point. Now I understand she was there kind of having hesitation, but she had really, the bestie had built up like, you're brave. You got to face your fears. You know what our YouTuber tells us? Face your fears. You can do it. Be yourself. Like, you can do this. And it was just like gassing her up in a way that she was like, yeah, yeah, I could do this. But after she does it, it changes everything for her. And I don't know if anybody else out there caught the same thing that I did, but it never played into anything. After all that happened, we had this moment with Shelby and the therapist. And we didn't really see the therapist, but we heard her voice. And her voice was exactly the bestie. And I was kind of like, that's really odd. I was like, is that what's coming into this? That's all going to be in her mind. That's something that was happening with the therapist because you didn't really see her. It was kind of like a side shot and you saw some hair or whatever, but the voice was so similar. I was like, oh no, is this where it's going? It turned into nothing. But did anybody else hear that? Let me know in the comments.
I'll give you my comment to it, and that, yeah, I heard that too.
Did you hear that
Yeah,
voice and was like, it's her? Like, it's so similar.
I thought it was in the moment. I thought it was her, and that's where I thought they were setting all this up, and maybe like this person had on like a lot of makeup or something, where she would be completely in disguise at school, and
Yeah.
maybe Shelby. So I thought that for a minute, and then as we got closer to the end of the episode and everything kind of unraveled, I just sort of sat back and I was like, okay. Is this just the voice that Shelby wants to hear? Because this is the voice that is used to giving her advice. And so
Hmm.
maybe, the therapist is saying these things and it's coming in her ear as her bestie's voice. It was a
Hmm.
very interesting choice that they did that. It's one of the more interesting things to discuss because if it is that she's just sort of hearing this voice, even at this time, then it's sort of showing that even as she's trying to recover, this bestie still has a hold on her that she's just not really able to shake.
Yeah, I was wondering if it was kind of going that way too. For most of it, I had thought that this was in her head, that she was kind of just having a bit of a break where she needed somebody so much that she manifested somebody in her own mind because she hadn't shared it with anybody. Nobody else had seen this bestie. Like nobody, it was like they didn't exist. So I was kind of like, I don't know if that's where they're going. If that's where they're going, I guess that'll be okay, but it feels kind of predictable. So when we actually started to
Mhm.
get near the end where River came in. He's like, "Oh, thanks, friend," and all that. I was like, "Oh, okay. This is kind of interesting." Now I'm in a spot where I'm like, is he somehow doing this? Is he doing this with this other woman partnered up? Is, like how is this happening? How is this guy involved?
This is my biggest issue with watching American Horror Story as a franchise is that I like to be optimistic with a lot of these shows, and there was a certain point where I was just like, okay, maybe he's actually not saying hi there, friend. Maybe this is all just in Shelby's head because she's still dealing with all of the aftermath. Maybe he's just a nice normal person and she can't see it fully. I'm sitting here, thinking of clouds and sunshine and rainbows because I want the best for these
Well,
people.
here's the thing is like, I do think that he's probably a nice, normal person. That was one of the things that we ended up seeing where she did an apology tour. I was really glad to see that she went and had an apology for that teacher who, if you guys are wondering where you've seen him before, he was an American Horror Story in New York City. He
Yeah,
played Whiteley. If you guys are like, oh man, I can't put my finger on it. I know that guy. That's where he was from, and he was so good on that show, and
yeah,
it was really cool to see him in sort of this non-creepy role in this show. I was like, oh, this guy's really versatile. He's really quite good.
yeah.
And New York was the first time I'd ever seen him in anything. I'd never seen him before, but he was great, and it was nice to see her on that apology tour. And River was there with her, and they even had this scene near the end where the teacher was kind of like, you're a good person. You're a nice person. You're a kind person. You're a smart person. Like, I'm really excited for you for your next step after high school and what you're going to be doing. And you're going to be going to this other school and you're going to be going with River and it's
Yeah.
all going to be okay. And I think that was the thing about Shelby. She was never in a bad, evil person, but she had influence at a time where any type of influence could have come in, a good influence that could have changed her in a great way, or a bad influence, which is what happened, that changed her in a bad way. And sometimes bad influences come into good people. So the idea that there was more than one person that was influenced by this bestie completely made sense.
All right. I'm hitting the curb now. I did not like the ending. I
Oh,
like a lot of this episode a lot. But
okay. Why?
here's the thing about American Horror Stories in general. I view them a lot as SNL sketches in a way because a lot of SNL sketches are really, really funny, but they don't know how to end them. And so the endings are just weird and often just out of left field or too predictable. This to me was way too predictable of an ending. The moment that he was just like, okay, there's something I got to show you. He's not telling her what it is. It was just like, okay, he's going to take her there.
Mhm.
I like to be solutions oriented here on the channel. So I'm going to propose an alternate ending that, in my opinion, is better. And all the commenters, I am ready for the disagreement here.
Oh my goodness. Okay, I
Okay.
have my
Yeah,
hard
yeah.
hat on. Let's go.
All right. So River and Shelby are just like, okay, you know what? We are looking towards this future together. Like, let's go and do something romantic. Maybe they do actually go somewhere and he surprises her or something like that. But it is something that is purely benevolent on his part. But he does not know that the bestie who was a part of his life in the past, just like she was Shelby, has found a way to track him, and that she confronts the two of them together, and then both of them have to square off in the past at the same exact time. To me, that gives a little more of a hope of a happy ending, and it's a little bit less of a, okay, we've played this game before. I can already see your reaction to this alternate ending already all over your face.
It's horror, right? Like
I guess.
usually it's not going to end in in a happy wrapped up in a bow where, Shelby and River get to go off and live a happy life at college. Like the idea of how far we saw Shelby get pushed to the point that she broke off her own hand, that I was like, wow, okay, well, if this woman has that kind of influence, I knew that he was taking her to go see the bestie. I feel like we all knew that that was happening. As they're driving in the van, it's like, oh, I'm taking you someplace. It's a surprise. Like, okay,
Yeah.
he's obviously involved, but because I didn't know how he was involved, I was like, was he involved from the beginning? Has he been influenced by her? Has he been influenced by her longer than Shelby? That this has been going on a longer time? Did she like get him after, everything was going on with Shelby and Shelby was starting to pull back? That the bestie was like, oh, I better get somebody else and I better get them quick so I can get my hands on Shelby. I just didn't know how it was really coming together until they kind of got into the house where it felt like, to me, he was being influenced by her for a long time, like a pretty long time, so that he was able to take it to even that next step where it's now we're looking at, having Shelby dead, that he's willing to literally do anything to be with his bestie.
I think it was a gruesome ending. I think it was fully in line with what this franchise is. Like, I'm not gonna sit here and be like, this did not make any sense because this is this show. Like, this show does stuff like this. American Horror Stories as a franchise does stuff like this. I think some of it, for me, comes a little bit down to personal preference, where like the stories I like the most in horror are the ones where, oh, a lot of terrible things happen, but maybe there's a person or two who still manages to get out of this alive, and you think, okay, it's sort of like, I won't spoil the end of 1984, but for those who watch that season, kind of like the final episode of that, where, okay, yeah, a lot of horrible things have happened, but here's like a little glimmer of hope.
And there is. River was able to get out of it. And that's why I'm saying, like, Shelby, I do think inherently was a good person. And I think the same of River. I think that they were just two really vulnerable people that, got online, got into a fandom, ended up, meeting the wrong person at the wrong time. It happens all the time. Anyone out there watch Catfish? Leave it for me in the comments. Then you know what I am talking about, where so many
Yeah,
vulnerable people end up online looking for love, looking for friendship,
yeah,
looking for whatever, and then they end up on Catfish season 9, right? Like
yeah.
this has been going on forever. I think season 2 had like 89 episodes or something. It was something crazy.
Okay, this is my only other beef with this episode. It's just that having the bestie be somebody who had a face that was disfigured, it played into, I think, a lot of really old stereotypes about people with disabilities that
I agree.
are, sinister or dark or twisted. And, there's been some positive movement in this direction. And I just sort of sit here and think, okay, is there a different way you guys could have spun this so
Mhm.
that it was compelling in a different sort of form? Like, what if this person was normal? Or what if this person, could have been anybody at Shelby School? Like, I think there's a couple of different ways they could have done that that would have taken it in a little bit more of a surprising direction. Once again, I'm not surprised that American Horror Stories did this because this is very in line with who they are and what they do. It's just, once again, that's just something for me as a viewer. I want to
Yeah.
be a little bit more surprised and have my expectations kind of played with more.
I had wondered if they went in that direction because if it was somebody else, she may have suspected that they were attached to the mean girls. Because we've seen that a
Hmm.
million
Yeah, it's true.
times where it's like one of the mean girls, a friend of the mean girl, someone she doesn't necessarily know, but then it's like, oh, ha ha ha, we got you, ma.
Yeah.
That I don't know that she would have trusted that. But because it was somebody that she had never seen before and she feels like she might have seen them at school and hasn't, that she felt more trustworthy.
The one thing I will say coming out of this episode is that I feel optimistic about the rest of the season now because this episode wasn't a total miss.
Oh no, Matt.
There was a lot to like. And
Listen, we had some really good episodes last season, and then the third, I think it was the third
yeah,
episode was Drive. So,
so I feel like it's listen, guys, you only have 4 episodes. I want to believe, and I'm sure it's very well possible, tinfoil hat on, that we're just in a situation where the SAG after strike like limited them to doing any more episodes. And there might have been some more planned. I want to believe that they just chose the 4 best possible stories, and we're not in a situation where it's just like there's some good stuff we're just not getting to.
Listen, we also just had Black Mirror this year, and it was 5 episodes, and Maisie Day was such a stinker. Like, you can have only 5 or 4 episodes. I see you shaking your
I
head because
liked
I
Maisie
know
Day.
how much you like Maisie Day, but it was such a stinker. And they only had 5 episodes. So, is it possible we're going to get a Bro House in here or a Drive? Yes.
Okay.
I know I'm railing on Bro House, and I actually really liked it, but it not because it was good. It was just so ridiculous.
Sometimes we just need Danny Trejo playing Santa Claus, everybody. That's
I
just
agree. Yeah.
it's a okay. All right. Well, we will be up next with the episode Daphne, which is one I'm very curious to watch. So hit that subscribe button so you guys don't miss that, any of our other American Horror Stories coverage, or our coverage American Horror Story Delicate, which is
Mhm.
currently on a break. It will be back in the new year.
Mhm.
Thank you guys for watching.
Thank
Thank
you.
you to our patrons for your support. We'll see you here next time.